We're taking it back.
Hey guys, Frozen X is here, and today I'm going to be talking about how to calculate true DPS and or raw DPS, however you want to call it. Now, before I start this video, I need to give a huge shout out to the guy who created my logo. He's a good friend of mine in real life. His name is Schmitty Gaming on YouTube. I'll put a link to his channel in the description and annotation on screen now. If you like the logo, go show him some love. But anyway, let's get right into the video. We're going to start off by talking about how to calculate marksman rifle damage or average damage per shot. Now, the game takes into account accuracy, which, depending on who you are, you may say this is a good or a bad thing. To me, I think it's a pretty bad thing, because if the game takes into account accuracy, what it's saying is if you have a gun that has an accuracy of 75, then the game is expecting you to hit 75 out of 100 headshots for that accuracy format to be correct. And let's face it, you're not going to hit 75 out of 100 headshots even if you had 100 accuracy. So, starting off, the base formula is bullet damage multiplied by critical hit damage percent times critical hit chance plus 1. And then if you want the average DPS while firing, which would be used for a SMG or any full auto rifle, you would take that previous formula and then divide that by rate of fire divided by 60. I'll put the formula on screen as well as in the description so you can take a better look at it. I just suggest you write it down. And so let's get into it. Starting off with my marksman rifle, which does bullet damage of 45,300 or 45.3k, has a rate of fire of 300. Critical hit damage is 82% increased. Critical hit chance is a 6%. The magazine size is 10, but we're not taking that into account. Sorry, that was a stupid thing to write down, but I was reading through the list of variables I wrote down to calculate this. And starting off, you have to take well, I don't really need to say starting off. I'll just put the formula on screen as well as the answer, which, well, if you take I'll first show if you take into account the rate of fire divided by 60. It's assuming your fire, it's 300 divided by 60, and it's assuming that you're going to be firing a total of 5 shots per second if you use that formula, and you cannot fire 5 shots per second with a sniper rifle. It's not possible, not even if you have a semi-automatic one, because the time the cursor takes to go back to the center is too long for you to be firing 5 shots a second. So I calculated if you want to calculate correctly, you just leave off the rate of fire divided by 60 part, which you'll see gives you a average damage per shot of 85,164. Now, a regular shot non-crit to the chest does 50,000 damage, and a critical hit to the chest does about 111,000 damage, so that falls right between them. So that is your average damage per shot, 85,164, or just calculate it according to your sniper rifle. Now let's look at an SMG. For this, I calculated an AUG. I didn't want to use a vector because, I mean, yeah, the vector is just too overhyped, and I got tired of using it, so I've been using an AUG recently, even though it's just a superior, not a high end. So first off, you do want to calculate the rate of fire divided by 60, and while the DPS chart says this gun has 150,000 damage per second, it's a true 188,000 damage per second. Now, obviously, the enemies in the game do have a small variable of armor. I don't know what percentage of bullet damage is being reduced from their armor, so until we get that variable, or I get that variable, you can only take this for what it's worth. So it's still true DPS, but it's still not telling you true bullet damage because enemies have a certain bit of armor. But once we get into the PvP part, you'll actually get a true sense of damage per second, which is pretty simple. A enemy can have up to 87% damage reduction from armor, and for all intents and purposes, we're going to calculate worst case scenario, assuming that every enemy has 87% armor or damage reduction, because it's not that hard to get, really. So, all you need to do is take the formula and times it by 87%, or 0.87, which will give you 163,560. That's how much you have to subtract from your initial number to calculate your regular damage per second, which once you do that, you'll get a negative 24,440, and the reason it's negative is because I'm lazy and didn't take the time to re-enter the variables, and so I just subtracted the smaller number, or took the smaller number and subtracted the bigger number, and then just flipped the negative in front of it, and then you have a total damage per second with my AUG in the dark zone against a player with 87% damage reduction is 24,440. So that is your average damage per second. Obviously, not every second is going to be that much damage. Some may fall in the 15,000s and some may be in the 36,000s because not every shot is a critical hit shot. Not every shot is going to do critical damage. Some shots are headshots, which I don't calculate in this formula. That is just for body shots that are critical hit and critical damage. And I'm not saying this formula is 100% correct. I'm actually kind of excited to hear what you guys have to say about it in the comments, what you think I can improve upon on it, where you think I went wrong, or any ideas that you have that could get me closer to a true and raw DPS formula. So before you comment saying, "Oh my god, your math is wrong," it's not wrong. It's not perfect, I won't admit, but the number calculations are correct to an extent. And with more fine tuning and some help, what you guys think should be taken into account, because these are the only things I really thought to take into account. I could put headshot damage in there, but how do you calculate what your percentage of headshots is? I don't really know how I do that for me, because with a marksman rifle, I'd say it's like 75%, or maybe a little less, but with SMGs, it's maybe 20%, and those numbers are probably just wrong in general, because how do you calculate how many headshots you hit? So yeah, I don't really know how I would implement that without, skewing the variables too much, but anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you learned something, and please leave a comment if you have a way I can improve this formula, and peace out.